Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro of the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Oral Reports. I just can't believe it. I just don't believe it. Dreamworks has made a sequel. After countless movies of fairy tale parodies, martial art pandas, mythical dragons, childhood guardians, and fast snails, what do we get this time? A follow-up to a really weak feature of theirs that was unnecessary to begin with. Back in March 2013, Dreamworks released The Croods. In the film, a Neanderthal family live in a cave protected by the father Grug in accordance with the rules of survival that he has learned over the years. However, his teenage daughter Eep is rebellious and questions why the family lives in the dark. One night, Eep sees a mysterious light and finds an intelligent Homo sapien teen named Guy who can control fire, and tells the family that their world will end. When their cave collapses, Eep seeks out Guy to follow him to the new world, but the stubborn Grug does not accept the change of rules, and he wants to find another cave to protect his family. Now, ever since I saw the trailer that preceded Madagascar 3, I was really skeptical. And after seeing it on DVD, despite the good CGI animation, a couple likable characters, and pretty good voice acting, it was still really predictable by ripping off The Land Before Time and the Flintstones. Plus, the comedy didn't make me laugh at all, and the creatures, while creative, don't really exist in the fossil records. And it makes me think that the film seems to take place more in a far-off post-apocalyptic future. And while The Croods did end up as one of my top 13 films that I hate, I'll give it a 63% out of 100. But sure enough, coming off the Rockin' Trolls World Tour, just when I thought it was cancelled, Dreamworks had to prove me wrong by releasing a Croods sequel anyway. So, released on November 25th, 2020, the movie is The Croods 2: A New Age. So, let's get this over with. Searching for a safer habitat, the prehistoric Crood family discovers a walled-in paradise that meets all of its needs. Unfortunately, they must also learn to live with the Bettermans, a family that's a couple of steps above the Croods on the evolutionary ladder. As tensions between the new neighbors start to rise, a new threat soon propels both clans on an epic adventure that forces them to embrace their differences, as well as draw strength from one another and survive together. So, what do I personally think of this movie? Well, on one hand, this is a minor improvement over the first film, but on the other, it's still not a quote-unquote good movie. But let's move on to Mustang notes. In April 2013, DreamWorks Animation announced a sequel to The Croods, with Chris Sanders and Kirk D'Amico set to return as directors and writers. According to D'Amico, the sequel would focus on Uga and motherhood, making it the first chapter of society, expanding on the first film, which he said is about the last chapter of the cavemen. On June 12, 2014, it was announced that the sequel would be released on November 3rd, 2017. On August 21st, 2014, the film was pushed back to December 22nd, 2017. On August 9th, 2016, nearing Comcast's impending acquisition of DreamWorks Animation, 20th Century Fox removed the film from the release schedule, and the film would instead get released by Universal Studios sometime in 2018. On August 23rd, 2016, it was reported that Kevin and Dan Hageman were hired to rewrite the script. However, On November 11, 2016, Dreamworks announced that the production for the sequel was canceled due to there being doubts after proceeding with the project before Universal's acquisition of Dreamworks. And it was Dreamworks' decision to cancel the movie, which may have been a sign of relief for me. But in September 2017, Dreamworks and Universal Studios revealed that the film was revived and put back into production, with a release date scheduled for September 18th, 2020. Plus, it was also revealed that Joel Crawford, in his directorial debut, would replace both Kirk D'Amico and Chris Sanders as director, and Mark Swift would replace Jane Hartwell and Christine Belson as the producers. Also to note, due to the COVID pandemic, much of the final animations had to be done from the crew's homes. Speaking of which, in my opinion, the good thing about this movie is the animation, and like Pixar, DreamWorks CGI has highly improved over the years, and to me, the landscapes in this movie are absolutely breathtaking, and I think the paradise that the Croods come across kind of makes me think of the Garden of Eden, in a way. Also, there are times when we see remarkable hand-drawn animation for Eep's diary and Guy's journal. Also, like in the first movie, the creatures featured in this movie are absolutely creative, kind of like the creatures that you'd see in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not only are there creatures like Chunky and Douglas, but there are also some new ones like chicken seals, pig gators, cow mammoths, land sharks, wolf spiders, and punch monkeys. However, there are times when the animation can be a tad creepy, mainly due to some of the characters' facial expressions. Plus, this movie almost gets away with nudity. As for the story, well, to me, it's a little better than the first movie. Yes, they don't use the Land Before Time concept here, but they still use the Flintstones concept. Also, this film feels kind of similar to films like Year One and Early Man, and a little bit of King Kong. Also, I kind of don't like the family rivalry or the scenes involving romantic interference. Just when I thought Ice Age 5 was bad enough with that idea. Anyway, let's move on to the cast. The patriarch of the family, Grug Crude, is once again voiced by Nicolas Cage, whom I remember from National Treasure, Astro Boy, The Ant Bully, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. For those who don't know, Grug was one of my problems with the first movie due to his overprotective and paranoid behavior. Plus, Nicolas Cage's over-the-top paranoid voice really gets old real fast. However, in this movie, Grug is scared of his daughter leaving the family with Guy, and sometimes he gets in the way of Guy and Eep's relationship. Next is Grug's daughter, Eep Crude, voiced by Emma Stone, best known from the Zombieland movies and the Amazing Spider-Man films. And soon, she'll play Cruella de Vil in Disney's upcoming movie, Cruella. Now, to be perfectly honest, folks, I think Eep is one of my favorite characters due to her having a mix of Ariel's curiosity and Merida's toughness. Also, I think Eep has a strong independent personality. Next up is Eep's boyfriend and our main character, Guy, voiced by the Green Lantern himself, Ryan Reynolds, who also got to be in DreamWorks Turbo, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, and the infamous Deadpool movies. Now, to me, I really like Guy's sarcasm and wittiness. Plus, his sloth sidekick Belt, voiced by Chris Sanders, is funny and adorable. Anyway, in this movie, Guy gets a lot of character development, mainly due to him hoping to become Eep's husband, as well as his connection with the Bettermans. Plus, his backstory on what happened to his parents was absolutely heartbreaking. However, I kinda didn't like when Guy starts to change his looks while he and the Croods are making themselves at home with the Bettermans. The rest of the family includes Grug's wife Ugga, voiced by Catherine Keener, Eep's brother Thunk, voiced by Clark Duke, the grandmother Gran, voiced by the recently deceased Cloris Leachman, and Sandy, this time voiced by the director's daughter, Kaylee Crawford. Now let's move on to the Betterman family, starting with their patriarch, Phil, voiced by Peter Dinklage, whom I remember from such stinkers like Elf and the Angry Birds movie, but I best know him from films like Pixels and Avengers Infinity War. Now, as mentioned earlier, he and his family have a history with Guy's family, and in my personal opinion, Phil is kind of a bit similar to Grug, except he's not over the top. Anyway, while he seemed kind of welcoming towards the Croods, there are some moments that make me feel a bit suspicious. Like when he goes into a sauna-styled cave to think, he manipulates Grug into letting Guy leave the family, and he doesn't let anyone eat the bananas in the paradise, due to him offering them to a tribe of punch monkeys every night. Next is Phil's wife, Hope, voiced by Leslie Mann, whom was in Disney's take on George of the Jungle, the Rio films, Paranorman, and Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Now, I really love Leslie Mann's acting, mainly due to her sweet and perky voice. However, sometimes Hope has a few issues. Not only does she and her husband want Guy to marry their daughter Dawn, but she's not very comfortable with the Croods' primitive ways. Finally, we come to Phil and Hope's daughter, Dawn, voiced by Kelly Marie Tran, best known as Rose Tico from Star Wars Episodes 8 and 9, and she'll be voicing Raya in Disney's upcoming animated hit movie, Raya and the Last Dragon. Awesome! Anyway, I think Dawn is kind of similar to Eep, mainly due to her being bound by all kinds of rules and boundaries in order to keep her safe. Plus, I like when she and Eep become BFFs. Plus, I like her slot sidekick Sash, who seems like a cute love interest for Belt. Other actors in the film include Melissa Disney, Joel Crawford, Janelle Mercado, and Ryan Naylor. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, The Croods 2: A New Age is not really a good sequel from Dreamworks, but it's not terrible either. Mainly due to my disappointment with the first movie, I expected the sequel to suck. Though, while the animation is breathtaking, a few characters are decent, and the voice acting is good for the most part, the writing, while a major improvement over the first film, still has some issues, mainly due to the family rivalry and romantic interferences. And while there is comedy in the movie, I didn't think it was all that funny. So, my rating for this movie will be a 60% out of 100. So, computer, what's DreamWorks planning on releasing next?
Well, sir, according to my data analysis, there's some good news and some bad news regarding DreamWorks. Bad news is that they're going to release a sequel to a bad film that you looked at 3 years ago.
Ugh, no, not again!
But the good news is that they'll be releasing a movie that you may love, which will be horse-related.
Seriously? Well, that's definitely something to look forward to. Well, folks, that's all for now. Be sure to join me for my next blog. Mustang Power.